So back in, I think 2012, 2011, maybe it was 2011. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's been over 10 years now. I got my conceal and carry permit. Back then in the state of Missouri, you had to get a permit and you had to go to your sheriff's office and get fingerprinted. And at the time, I was in St. Louis County. So that was terrifying. I mean, that's kind of a anti-gun county. And then I moved to a more southern redneck county, and that wasn't so bad. But you had to get it renewed every 4 years, or if you moved counties, which, like I said, I lived in St. Louis County, and then I moved actually just one town over, but it went from St. Louis County into Redneck County. I think it was Franklin County. It's a little while after that, so what is that? That's probably 8 years. Then Missouri became a constitutional carry. You can open carry, you don't need a permit. I still have my permit, I just never got it renewed, which was kind of frightening because I think it expired while I was on the road when we were nomads, we were traveling. I kept the permit just to show that I still had it in case some out-of-state person, cop or whatever, wanted to see the permit. I could say, well, I got it, but it's expired. I probably would have still gotten in trouble. I guess, I'm not sure. I know that you're supposed to have a permit if you travel to other states, and it depends on what state, and you got to look all this up. So being a nomad was actually kind of difficult with conceal and carry. Well, now I can carry all I want, and I'll tell you, a lot of people criticize me for this particular gun. It's a Ruger SR22. I've had it for, well, I had an old junky pistol that I qualified on when I got my permit. And of course, you had to have a revolver too back then. You had to qualify on both. But shortly after that, I started really researching what kind of gun I wanted to carry. One person said something that made a lot of sense to me. Carry the gun that you can practice the most with. Well, to me, 22 seemed like a really good option. Now, of course, there's disadvantages and advantages, but I can practice a ton with this. I mean, back then, ammo was 22 ammo, good ammo. CCI, I use Blazer, which is a CCI. It's over 1,000 feet per minute. I think it's 1,200 feet per minute. Ever since I got it, struggled with some ammo and doesn't struggle with other ammo, but Blazer outdid all of them, even CCI. So I stuck with Blazer. I like Blazer. They're easy to get, but it is lead, so you got to keep the barrel clean. But anyway, I've shot, gosh, I'm sure several thousand rounds out of this. And as long as it's Blazer, it's never malfunctioned. So that takes care of the problem of, ooh, you're using 22, that's not very reliable. I also change out the ammo about every 2 months or so. The way I change it out is I get to play and I shoot out a round, just, you know, the 10 rounds, boom, boom, boom. And I've always liked this. It's got a neat little safety on it. It's ambidextrous no matter what you do. Now it's cocked and ready to shoot, but if I take the safety and I bring it down, it releases the hammer and it's back to safe mode. I can draw this pretty quick. Now it's double action or single action. So the first round, you got to pull that trigger or pull the hammer back. After that, it's single action. You don't have to do anything. Another thing I like about 22s is you don't need earplugs. With the pistol, it's a little louder than it is with the rifle, but it's still manageable. And see, the safety is, it's just a really nice gun. But so if I take one round and now something else, the doctor blinded me in my right eye, made me take steroids. So now I had to adjust everything to the left eye. And that has slowed me down a lot because, no, I don't know if it's a lot, because it takes me a second to realize, ooh, I got to use my left eye. So it has increased my reaction time. See, I did it again. I even knew, but I just take it. It's a great little gun. My ears aren't ringing and screaming. So I carry a 22. Now, I know you need knockdown power. Well, I'm not a big guy, and it's difficult for me to carry a larger gun. Something that I can conceal my body. Let's keep it small. And the thing is, 22 is quite deadly. Well, I've gotten off on the 22 too much, but so I've reported several things that has happened in the last year or so about what's going on in the state of Missouri and guns and firearms. And one of the things that I reported on was in the state of Missouri, ATF, well, even before that, it was right before ATF, you may have seen a video on this. They went to like New Jersey or someplace over in the east, And the ATF and state patrol for that state knocked on this guy's door and wanted to see his firearms. He just recently purchased a bunch of firearms, and they wanted to see him, so to see if they were doing straw purchases. Well, of course, everybody knows you should ask for a warrant and all that kind of stuff, but you know, he's feeling pressure. His neighbors were pointing and staring at him. Why are all the cops over there? And his kid was asleep, so he just wanted him to go away. So he went out and got his, went in, got his guns, brought them out to him. And they checked one, and they said, okay, great, good news. Well, shortly after that, the ATF decided they were going to come to Missouri and check conceal and carry permit records at the sheriff's office. They were going to do an audit. Well, my county was the first county that said, no, we're not going to comply with that. We're not doing it. And then there was another county that made a big deal about it, got on the news, the whole thing. So our sheriff simply sent out a notice, letter, or I'm not going to expose your records. Now, what I don't understand is how can the ATF come and audit records when there's no records because we're conceal and carry? The only time you really need a permit is to go to a different state. And I'm not even sure, depending on what state, if you really need the permit. Then we had another incident where they wanted to come out and check FFL dealers. And again, the county said, no, you're not coming out and checking FFL dealers. Now, the ATF came back and said, well, if you want to open up more gun stores, then you're going to have to come on and let us check. And I still think my county said, no, you're not coming out. Well, not too long ago, and as a matter of fact, I'll link an up next box to this video I'm getting ready to reference at the end of this video. But I just made a video a couple days ago, maybe a week or two ago, where I was talking about the ATF again. And ATF is just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. A while back, let me back up just for a second, the Supreme Court made a decision that all states have to have an avenue, provide an avenue that every citizen is not in trouble with the law can get a conceal and carry permit. Now, of course, some are much more restrictive than others, so I'm sure New York requires you to have all kinds of licensings, whereas Missouri, just go buy a gun. So the Supreme Court is getting ready to decide on another case about the ATF. The ATF makes laws based on the 1968 Firearms Act. So Congress said the ATF can make any laws they want as long as Congress doesn't overrule that law. So they can say anything they want. They can say this is a machine gun, or this is got to have this license, you got to do this. They can do a lot of things. So recently they've been doing a lot of things. For one thing, they have this trigger that they just invented that wasn't recognized as a machine gun back in the 80s when they classified what a machine gun was. And they classified machine gun as that one projectile will fire with one trigger pull. Well, this new trigger will fire when you pull and fire when you let go. Fire, 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 fire. The ATF said that is an automatic weapon. So now the ATF is going around and knocking on people's doors. We are going to confiscate your trigger. And you're seeing all kinds of videos about that, and some people saying, I'm just not going to answer any questions, I'm not going to tell you what my name is. And then others are just handing them over, just as you would expect people to hand them over. Well, then they also said that they're going to change the law before the Supreme Court hearing. So this year, they're going to change the law that if you want to sell a gun, and you want to make a profit off that gun, that you have to be a firearms dealer. So you have to register as a firearms dealer, an FFL licensed dealer. In the past, if you wanted to sell a gun, you could take it to the gun store. The gun store would sell it for you, have the buyer fill out all the FFL paperwork, all that paperwork you got to fill out, and then sell him the gun, and then you would get your money, and the dealer would keep their money because it's a consignment deal. But now they're saying that if you sell a gun, you have to be an FFL dealer. In that video, I was talking about how the ATF, not me, the ATF, believe that they own all guns and they are deciding who gets to have a gun and who doesn't get to have a gun. That's their theory. Even though you bought the gun, even though the manufacturer made the gun and sold it to you, they feel like they are in possession of it. That's why they call it a buyback program. They're buying it back because they originally think it's theirs in the first place. They're allowing you to have access to it, and now they're going to buy it back. So it's kind of like you're renting it. So the ATFs did come out and state that they think, not me, that since we have an army and we have the National Guards now, that takes care of the militia clause in the Second Amendment. I know that when you get into the conservative groups and you're listening to all that, a lot of them have these theories that they want to disarm us. Well, I struggle with that they're going to disarm us. There are as many guns in this country as there are people. 300 million guns, there's 300 million people. There's a lot of guns in this country. And think about this. The ATF or the Army or anybody, I can't imagine, are going to go door to door and start taking guns. I mean, I know they take a trigger right now, but at some point, you would think that some state is going to stand up with their National Guards. Now, it would be a losing battle, but let's just call Missouri. Missouri calls up its National Guard and said, hey, they're sending the FBI and the ATF and whoever. They're sending them all out to the Missouri, and they're knocking on doors. And so the militia, the real militia, and the National Guard of Missouri stand up and fight back. I wonder if they really think that the law enforcement officers are going to stand there and take that kind of, basically, war. So it doesn't seem too likely to me that they're going to just take our guns. Now, they may try to come in the back door somehow, figure out, like New Mexico, which I'll cover in just a second. Try to write some emergency health thing, and even if they said, hey, we want the sheriffs to go around picking up guns. Again, New Mexico, I'll bring it up in a minute. The sheriff is not going to want to go around knocking on doors, picking up guns, because that's going to be a dangerous job. That's my point. The National Guard and the militia are standing up to the ATF. Now, somebody's going to say, well, what if they send the Army? And that is a possibility. I don't think everybody would comply with that in the Army. It would be a big battle with soldiers and their leaders. I know we have some leaders that would say, yeah, we'll do that. But it's got to be a constitutional order. If the president says go out and get guns, obviously the Constitution kind of conflicts with that. So getting to New Mexico, that's exactly what the governor just did. She wrote an emergency health order that said, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this already, that said that you cannot conceal and carry or open carry in particular municipalities that have met certain criteria. Let's just say it's Albuquerque. I don't know if Albuquerque is actually a town that's in trouble, but let's just call it Albuquerque. So Albuquerque cannot conceal and carry with this emergency health directive. Well, the first thing that happened was the sheriff said, I'm not going to enforce this law. I got better things to do. I'm not going to go around taking honest people's guns away from them. In New Mexico, you can open carry, but to conceal and carry, you have to have a permit. It's not a constitutional carry state. And then there was the Attorney General. He's a Democrat too. So the sheriff's a Democrat, at least this is what my understanding is. The Attorney General's a Democrat and the governor's a Democrat. So the Attorney General says, I know it's my job, Governor, to support you in your decisions, and if there's lawsuits or anything, I'm supposed to take your side and defend you, but I'm not going to do that on this one. It's unconstitutional, and I just don't see how I can win this one. Now, what was really interesting is when the governor gave this directive, she even said she didn't know if it was actually going to fly constitutionally. She thought there was going to be a lot of legal battles. Well, of course, today, the day I'm making this video, the federal judge already said, yeah, we're going to suspend that until I get a chance to review it in October. I mean, that didn't even fly for, what, a week? Now, of course, all the conservatives, I told you this was going to happen. The Democrats are going to take our guns. And my first thing I said is, it's got to go through a lot of challenges before people start taking the guns. I mean, the first thing that happened was there was a protest and everybody grabbed their guns and went out on the streets, and guess what? Nobody got arrested like they were supposed to, like the governor said. The thing I am struggling with, and I've always struggled with this, is let's just say it's half the country that owns guns. I think it's more than half, but let's just say it's half. How does a governor who seems somewhat intelligent, I mean, they don't have to be overly bright, but she was intelligent enough to get elected as governor 2 times. She was intelligent enough to write a law and understand the law that she was going to take people's guns away. She understood how she was going to enforce it with state patrol, which is how she's doing it because the sheriff said he wasn't going to do it. So she's got some smarts. And she had the smarts to say this probably will come across with some constitutional challenges, legal challenges. She knew all this. She also knows that her Congress could actually impeach her over this. So it seems to me that she's not the one making these decisions. I'm sure people are going to say I'm a conspiracy theorist, but nothing else adds up in my head. There has to be someone or a group of people telling her to do this because it's the dumbest thing a smart person can do. is to go after guns. I mean, instantly lawsuits took place, sheriffs were coming out, attorney generals were coming out. And the thing is we saw this during Hurricane Katrina. The mayor of New Orleans went around confiscating everybody's guns, beating up old ladies. I actually saw videos of sheriff, police, beating up old ladies for guns. I've said that before and people say, oh, that never happened. Then I guess I dreamt it. Immediately, all the states around the country, lots of states around the country started writing laws saying during a time of an emergency, law enforcement cannot confiscate guns. So I'm sure, I don't know for sure, but I'm sure that New Mexico has a similar law to that. Why does she think she has the authority? She doesn't have authority. She knows she doesn't have authority. There's somebody, there's a puppet master somewhere dictating all this. So if you'll click this up next box to take that video where I was talking about the ATF, so I hope I can inspire you to stand tough so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.